Well, I started out a site in 2006, so it's been running for 3 years. And my kind of, I suppose, the impetus for starting it was really because I was making performance work and kind of noticed that there weren't that many opportunities to actually see performance work. And I was kind of interested in the idea of bringing it out of kind of gallery spaces so that there's kind of more people can see it and there's more opportunities to engage. And I suppose a lot of my own practice would have kind of engaged an audience, so it was kind of marrying all those ideas. And the first year we kind of came in under the umbrella of the Fringe Festival, and it ran over 16 days, so there was basically one artist performing over each day for the 16 days in different locations around the city. So over the course of the 3 years, we kind of played around with that a little bit. So in 2007, it was a 5-day series with a variety of performances happening each day. Some of the performances were kind of happened on a couple of the days, so that there was more chance to see things. And also it was kind of possible to see a few things one after the other, so that you can make more of a relationship between them and kind of consider the work in relation to each other. And rather than it seeming very disparate, even though the performances were still dotted quite across the city, from let's say kind of the O'Connell Street area right out to, let's say, the Coombe or something like that. 2008 then was kind of another kind of version again, where it was more like in the previous years I had kind of had an open submission and had invited a few artists, but it was very much about it being open submission. This year it was more kind of about the site and inviting people to respond to the site. So I chose 10 artists to respond to the site and kind of consider how they could make a work about the area. And they were all going to be performed on the same day, so that again it's about the relationships that you can make. So I suppose I was kind of interested more in that kind of, in, let's say, a curatorial role in terms of how the work can be viewed alongside each other. So this kind of idea that it is like an exhibition of works that you can kind of see in unison. So it was really about that, and very much my interest in the Clontarf area, because I would go out there quite often and really liked the bathing shelters and the seated areas as structures in themselves, and how they could become kind of like mini stages, or kind of a structure that you could kind of frame the work around. So in the first year it was funded through the VAI and partly through the Fringe Festival, and then in 2007 it was funded through the Arts Council, the Goethe Institute, and a few other kind of smaller funding systems. And then in 2008, because of it just happened that it was like the right project for the right moment. Dublin City Council had commissioned research by Vagabond Reviews into kind of creating art in public spaces, in and for public spaces. So when I approached them about doing a kind of a very specific site project in Promenade, they were kind of totally interested in it, in terms of how it could kind of fulfill what they were trying to do in terms of the open spaces program. So it all just fit very nicely together. And I suppose open spaces is very much about how the council can kind of be more supportive in terms of getting projects off the ground. So this year was a completely different beast in terms of how I was able to get permission to use the sites, to access to places like the pub station, and just in terms of kind of the logistics of dealing with different departments in the council. So in previous years you would have to go to events and also to the arts office, and you might have to deal with some of the other smaller departments just to kind of basically get permission for different things and kind of access to certain locations. And through the support of the arts office this time, it just was so much easier, because they have all of those connections. They know who to go to talk to, they know who's working in this parks department. Even something very simple like the walkway along Clontarf, it's actually separated into two parks divisions. The area before the Bull Wall is that kind of Clontarf area, and let's say the Bull Wall is part of kind of more South Downs Park, whatever area kind of deals with that. So even just knowing that kind of stuff can take ages to deal with, and you're just kind of making more and more phone calls and dealing with more and more red tape, and it's another thing that you have to kind of deal with. So all of that stuff just became so much easier. It is a big undertaking because you have to kind of deal with everybody on an individual basis, and there were certain things that didn't happen. Like Sinead McCann originally wanted to use the old bathing shelter that's along the Promenade, but it's actually privately owned at the moment, and we didn't get permission for that, so we kind of had to go with Plan B for that, and that took a while for that to work itself out. I suppose as well, it's kind of because I'm an artist and I understand that you need to give things time for the work to develop and for the ideas to really solidify, that I'll kind of probably more so than maybe other commissioners, let's say, let it kind of run on a little bit. So there was kind of a bit of negotiation between Dublin City Council and the artists. I was kind of the middleman going, well, this is what they're kind of going to do, but we're never going to know until it gets really close, because you don't know how the ideas are going to develop. So like, let's say for Amanda Coogan's piece, she started out with certain ideas, and then because of the way the other work that she was doing at the time, she was making this piece Yellow that she did in New York. She did it over 6 days, and each day we did it for about 8 hours, I think, and it was really became about duration. So her work really changed then in terms of what she was going to do and how that was going to work itself out. So I know that it's important to allow that space for it to organically develop. So it was just a little bit of that brokering where you have to kind of, so finding a balance between that, like maybe it could have been I could have been a little bit more strict and gone, come on, give me it. But at the same time, it's important to kind of allow the work to go at its own pace, I think. They gave me a budget, so they basically, once they found out like whatever their funding system was, they gave me a budget to run with. So I think it was €10,000 was the budget that we got for it, which
was that for everything?
Yes, in terms of the kind of budgets we would have had before, that was pretty good. And then I was able to bring in further sponsorship through Dublin Port Authority, which kind of like added to the funds that were available, which just gave us a little bit more room to manoeuvre. And I suppose I was from the previous years as well, kind of learning more about kind of how much of the resources really need to go in to kind of the marketing and PR, and I suppose we spent the availability of that extra funds just meant that we could pay the artist properly, but we could also actually have a proper budget to put towards that kind of stuff, because it's quite often, I think with smaller projects, the thing that gets kind of left by the wayside, and it actually is kind of half the battle getting people there. So. Just lovely things happened, when during Dominic Thorpe's performance, which was really all about suicide in Ireland, a woman who kind of happened upon the piece sat with it and then told him a story about a person that she knew who had committed suicide by walking into the sea. So the work resonated for people, but also you have this engagement and a way where actually performance work then can make a lot of sense to people in terms of what it's about. And performance is about life and art and how they coincide with each other. And it's not always that you have those, that it's lovely. There have been scenarios where the people have reacted badly to the performances, and that's something that I always think you just have to kind of prepare yourself as much as possible for it, and in terms of like the organizer, kind of being aware that you need to put certain things in place so that people are safe, so the audience feel like there is some kind of mediation of the work if they're unsure as to what's going on. But then you just have to do it and hope for the best, because you can't, like if we were afraid of things, we'd just never do anything.